Well, good evening and welcome to tonight's presentation. We've got a few people here in attendance and a few people online, and if you happen to be watching this after the fact, tonight is... Good evening and welcome to tonight's presentation. We've got a few people here in attendance and a few people online, and if you happen to be watching this after the fact, tonight is... Welcome to tonight's... Okay. We have no...
Are you watching?
I muted it here.
Okay.
No, I forgot. I guess this is going on YouTube. Okay. Go ahead. Just continue on.
Okay, I guess we're having a little audio problem. We're getting some feedback here. Pumped back into the room here. Well, let me start over. Good evening. Welcome to the YCARS presentation. Tonight is March 24th, 2022. And tonight's presentation is a twofer. So we got two topics tonight. The first is on CW ops, and the second presentation we're going to talk about ADS-B and aircraft tracking. I want to do this presentation on CW ops tonight for a couple reasons. One is we've had a lot of interest in oh, by the way, let me introduce myself. I'm K4DQP. My name is Darcy. I'm the treasurer here at YCARS, and if I've emailed with you or spoken to you over the phone but haven't met you in person, I'm looking forward to doing that at some point. So there's been some interest here at the club, and I know online with over the past 2 years now, it seems, a lot of interest, people renewing their interest in learning and different avenues of ham radio, and one of those is CW. We've had a lot of interest in our own club here, people saying, well, how do I start? Or we've had several people who've gone through some CW training, and they're interested in people's perspectives in it and like to know a little bit more about it. So tonight we'll talk a little bit about what the interest is in learning CW, what's CW Academy, and then a little bit about my perspective on the experience itself. And if you look over to the right there, you'll see a picture. I think this is like a Navy or Army training CW operators back in the day, which is a really cool picture. Hopefully, so recent club survey results show that, we have a high interest in learning CW. At least about 25% of people said they have somewhat or a high interest in learning CW. Now, with regards to other things in the club, it may not be the highest, but there's a fair number of people who said they were interested in learning CW. Couple things. Of course, there's a long history of CW in major world events. You know this from the sinking of the Titanic, and there's a link here in the presentation. There's a great audio presentation about the Titanic, and what they've done is translate Morse code into words, so you don't have to know CW to understand it, but you actually get to listen to the conversations between the ships and what it would have sounded like. It's about an hour long. Treat yourself to this audio, and we'll make sure you get the link in the presentation here. It's really cool. We've done this presentation before at YCARS. I don't know if you guys remember it, but the second, of course, is World War II. There was a big resurgence and effort during World War II to learn Morse code, to train listeners, interceptors, and there's fascinating books on this topic. I don't know if you guys want some recommendations for those. There was a real resurgence in training people to use Morse code. And finally, in the modern age, you say, well, Morse code is kind of passé, right? It's an old technology, or there's other things. I'm going to share with you a very quick video and an experience that I think you'll find interesting about the modern usage of Morse code. If I can get my audio levels up here. David, you tell me up or down from here. All right, here we go. My guys can't hear it. Pause it real quick. There's other things. I'm going to share with you a very quick video. All right, one last time. Here we go. Didn't change anything, David. You know, are you hearing it now? It's really disappointing. You're not hearing it? Okay, my audio is like all the way up here. I did not. I think you changed something. Tell you what, I'm going to push it out through the speaker here. You guys will be able to hear it. No, they cannot hear it. All right, I'm just going to play the video and I'll explain it. You guys can listen to it. Basically, there were 16 policemen that were kidnapped, and the Colombian military wanted to send a message to their people that were kidnapped. So what they did is they encrypted, they put Morse code, and then they wrapped a song around the Morse code, so the Morse code was in the background. It's really disappointing you can't hear it. Anyway, and you have to go back and watch this video because it's fascinating. So there's the Morse code, and then they put music over top of it. And of course, they happen to use one of the Colombia's most modern pop singers to write a song. And when they released the song, it was picked up by 100 different radio stations across Colombia, and the captives knew that these guys were coming to rescue them. The song is called One Voice. So that was disappointing. Hopefully you get a chance to hear that at some point, but we'll play it after for you guys here. Go back to the. So that's CW in the modern age. And then just keep in mind that it is the most efficient mode. So when band conditions aren't great, CW is a great mode to use. And it's used by contesters, pod activations, and sometimes just rare DX. Sometimes you will not be able to contact people unless you're using CW. So it's just an option. So there's a lot of reasons to do it. So CW Academy is one of several resources that you can use. Most of these are all online. So basically the format is there's some kind of teacher or mentor, and you're logging in and with other classmates, and you're practicing together. CW Ops is one. There's the Morse Code Ninja, which this guy is a computer scientist. He had a heart attack at 30 some odd years old and decided Morse code was on his bucket list. And he's up to like 60 words a minute, which is incredible. And he's got resources from everything from five words a minute all the way up to like 60 words a minute. And he's just got kind of a really neat outlook. Like it's just, he's very encouraging. And then there's this other club, the Long Island CW Club, and they do things online as well. So it's kind of cool that, we've taken some of these trainings and classes online, And they're interactive. It's not just you watching a video or something. It's you actually participating live with people. So, okay, we'll keep breezing through this. CW Academy is part of CW Ops. CW Ops is the organization. They do contests. They do recognition. They have little events online. They really encourage people to really promote CW, the history of it, and so forth. So CW Ops is a larger organization, and CW Academy is just one of their activities that they do. There's 4 levels: beginner, basic, intermediate, and advanced. I recently took the beginner class, and if you're not sure, if you're thinking you might want to start in the CW Academy, there's an online test, and they give you they say if you don't know what these letters are, if you can't recognize these instantly, then go down a level and take that test and keep going down until you find the right class for you. So even if you're a seasoned operator, they have a lot of seasoned operators in the immediate and advanced class, and it's not just about speed, it's about character recognition and skills, and I'm sure in the later classes they cover more things like contesting and so forth, but the beginner class is all about listening and character recognition. So what do you need to do? You need to sign up and you have to wait. My understanding is they have about 1,000 applicants per every semester they have, which is 2 months, so it's every 8 weeks. And there's a limited number of professors that teach it. So if you sign up today, you might be in the fall or the winter class for next year. So if you're interested, sign up. You need a quiet place to practice and join meetings. Of course, headphones are suggested. A good internet connection because they use both Zoom and Skype. A code oscillator, you were talking about putting batteries in yours. A radio that's not transmitting, some kind of speaker oscillator is good enough. You need an iambic paddle, no straight keys or bugs. They don't let you use this. You saw in the beginning photo, they used to teach people on the straight key. Now they just teach them on, now they're teaching with iambic. And the reason is because the timing, the spacing is difficult to get. It will not be incorrect. With a straight key, you have to manually create the space between characters. With the paddle, you don't. Time and willingness to learn and practice as anything, and attendance is mandatory. So they really ask you, because it's an 8-week course, they ask you not to miss classes. Classes are twice a week for an hour with your instructor. And they've dedicated their time and they've committed to that. They've put together resources, they're teaching, and they ask you to just be respectful of that. So the class I was in, my guy had been teaching it for several years. He said my class was the first one with perfect attendance. So that's kind of cool. Even when we traveled down to Hamcation, I logged in online and was in front of my little laptop here, sitting outside in the camper. The other thing is I had elbow surgery back in January, and the next day I was in my CW Ops class because I was like, I don't want to miss a class. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So there's 16 sessions, 8-week or twice a week. Mine ran through January through February. Mine was a beginner course taught by Gary Johnson, N8 Lima Romeo, November 8 Lima Romeo. Learning CW, there's no tricks or gimmicks. There's a lot of charts and tables and quick learns, and that is so frowned upon. In fact, I'll be honest, it was extremely rare, if ever, that I looked at a CW chart. Like, this letter is this. You learn it from hearing it. And so it is not recommended to use decoders or any kind of charts on the wall or anything on your computer. Like, if you don't know the letter, you just don't know it, and they just move on, right? And you're supposed to be having fun with it, but they are pushing you to learn and practice. Their expectation is that you practice about an hour a day. My instructor had multiple emails a week just of encouragement, Our class motto was no mercy. Our professor was showing, our instructor was showing no mercy to us. He wasn't a drill instructor. He wasn't a drill instructor, but it was very good. He was pushing the people to learn. It's very interactive. There's proficiency tests and after class on-air interactions that we had with our classmates. So we'd say, "Oh, we can't get enough. Let's get on the air and practice together. And you send me these words, and I'll see if I can copy and so forth." So there's a lot of that goes on, not just in the class itself, but outside the class.
How many being tutored at the same time?
So I had 5 students and 1 instructor in the class. And that's about how they like to keep it. You know, because they figure maybe one will drop during the class. And so it's very one-on-one. I mean, you know, my guy was pretty open to phone calls, and, you know, there's a couple plateaus I hit during the 8 weeks even that just like, I'm struggling here. And he's like, it's okay, you'll get through it. And sure enough, he'd blow through it and hit the next one. So it is a serious time commitment. I don't want to underestimate that. I mean, if, you know, I have young children at home and a full-time job, and I managed to do it, but my wife was pretty gracious about letting me have two nights off a week and then some time to practice. But ultimately, you'll get out of it what you put into it. You know, it's kind of a self-learning thing. You have instruction. There's an example on the right-hand side of just kind of like some of your homework. That's like lesson 1 homework. So you get this homework that you do every week. So this here, you would listen to these various letters over and over again, and then try to pick out words and so forth. And then he might test you on it. So it's both listening, copying, and sending. So he would expect you to be able to, he or she would expect you to be able to send the word T, you know, at the end of week 1. And you're like, come on, I can't. And it's amazing how, when you really are focused, how much you can learn. It's great. And at the end, you get a nice certificate, which is, you know, what you get. And you can kind of, your instructor will sort of, or advisor will recommend to CW Academy that you can move on, and then they will let you register for the next class. So, great. Any questions? I don't know if we have anybody in the chat, but
What's the cost of that?
it's totally free. It's totally volunteer led, and the instructors do change out from time to time. So it's not likely. And my instructor only taught beginners, so he doesn't teach any other classes. And so they do change out, and they solicit a lot of feedback about the instructor. How well was this person? Were they receptive to questions? Were they encouraging? Were they discouraging? You know, they really want to make sure that they get the top-notch instructors in there, and it's great. It's great. It was a great experience. I had a lot of fun, and really encourage anybody who is interested, might want to check the CW Academy out. So that's presentation for the CW Academy, and we're going to go on to the second of the 2 first tonight. This is about ADSB. So I've done this presentation before for the club. Some of this material is new, some of it's not, but I think you'll find it interesting. So if you're an aircraft enthusiast, if you like data, if you like building little antennas and things like that, even if you like the weather, this is a great presentation for you. So ADSB, you may or may not have ever heard of it. What is ADSB? Well, we're going to talk about that in our introduction, or again, my introduction. I'm K4DQP. What is ADSB? How to get started, and then kind of projects for ham radio operators. If you look at that map right there of the world, that's what ADSB coverage is. So keep that in mind. Just there's a lot of places in the world where nobody lives, and or there's not good internet connection, and there's not a lot of flight tracking that's going on in those parts of the world. So what is ADSB? Okay, ADSB stands for Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast. And I'm not going to read this, But basically what this means is that, and what ADS-B was designed for is for aircraft equipment to report their position and other information without the need for radar integration or integration, sorry. I think I said that wrong. Basically what this is this replaces radar. Now you might be saying, wait a second. They still have radar, they still use radar. But the majority of aircraft tracking today does not take place with radar. It takes place with ADS-B. Because every commercial aircraft, and there are some exceptions, Air Force One and some others maybe, military aircraft are not required to have it, but do turn it on sometimes. But basically, it's a signal that's being sent from aircraft. And when I say aircraft, I don't just mean aircraft. I mean balloons. I mean other flying things. And ground vehicles that support those. They're sending a signal to say, I'm located here. Here's my latitude and longitude. Here's my airspeed. Here's my heading. Here's my whatever. And from that, you can interpolate other pieces of information. I'm aircraft number this. So now what you get is this picture of the world with aircraft all sending these signals down to something. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. All right, so this is a little schematic here of ADS-B, and we'll start at the airplane itself. So the aircraft can broadcast, and who can pick it up? Well, other aircraft can pick it up. So they know how far away that other airplane is from them. They get this view of the sky of other airplanes all around them because their receiver is telling them where the airplanes are. There are special devices inside of aircraft that both broadcast and interpret the data and present it on a map. Satellites can pick this up and report that back down to the ground or other aircraft. The air traffic control can use this in addition to radar, but they use this to track aircraft. And what isn't in this chart are commercial sites. So if you've ever taken a flight and you get notification that such and such plane is just landed, maybe your son or daughter or kids or whoever's husband, spouse, whatever, this airplane will arrive in so many minutes. Well, how do they know that? If they're not using radar, somebody is feeding somebody the data about that airplane. And all of this information is collected and put into databases and so forth. And then that data is displayed for people like you and I to check on the status of a flight on our phone or on the board at an airport. So this signal that's being sent is broadcast in VHF, which is broadcast typically at 1090 megahertz, but can be as low as 978 megahertz. So that's a relatively small antenna. If you think about it, I have a visual here. That antenna is about that big. That's a eighth wave, I guess, but it's kind of small. Well, it does take something special to decode it. But if you were to tune a radio to 1090 megahertz, you would hear some kind of something, a digital signal, some kind of hissing, and coupled with a little data transmission in there as well. Okay? It's sent as a data packet. So the aircraft is taking information from the aircraft, packaging it up in a packet and sending it out just instantaneously, just constantly. Okay? All these signals are sort of broadcast on the same frequency, which sounds crazy, but because it's packeted, and when the decoder opens the package, it identifies who that package is from. It can grab multiple packages at once, and decode them. And I say they're sent every second. It actually may be faster, but interesting to note that some of the commentary I read on ADS-B is that it's more accurate than radar, because a radar sweep may only occur every 15 seconds, but this is sending data every second, so you know the position. So here's just a very brief, and I'm not going to try to explain this or go into detail about it, but basically this is a representation of the data packet. So there is a preamble, some information about the aircraft itself and the system that it's using, and then the ADS-B data here sends altitude, latitude, longitude, speed, so forth, okay? And so all of this data is sent in one packet at a time. All right, so let's talk about, okay, great, I understand planes send data, airplanes send data, got it. Well, it has both commercial and non-commercial uses. So we talked about for airplanes to identify each other, to get a view of the sky. We talked about flight feed or flight tracking and things like that. It's also used in accident investigations. So almost one of the first thing that somebody will do, and you watch this next time on the news, they talk about a plane crash. They will show you a picture of the ADS-B. They'll show you a picture of the flight tracking. It's used in accident investigations. In fact, I have a story I'll go into here in just a second. So it's always in the news. You basically set up a receiver and feed it into commercial sites. So they're going to give you, so the hardware is relatively cheap, the software is free, and the setup is fairly easy. And once you get it going, you're going to be able to see what your receiver is seeing in the sky. I'm going to show you that here in a second. And your box, your computer, whatever, is going to be trading that data and sending that data, because maybe the FAA, or in our case here at YCARS, FlightAware, they gave us some hardware and we've set it up. And our hardware is feeding into FlightAware's system. And then they're selling that data, that information to Yahoo Travel and other folks for usage. So what some of you may or may not know is that about 3 weeks or so, I want to say about 3 weeks before, we had a plane crash here in Rock Hill, South Carolina, just a mile or so from this location. The NTSB in one of the news stories talked about how they were analyzing the flight track. And I won't go into detail about how I knew, but we went through and looked at the flight of this aircraft that took off in West Georgia and flew across to Rock Hill, and this was the flight path that was taken. Now, this person was trying to get to this location here in get there a little easier here. Was trying to get to the Rock Hill Airport, but you see from the flight data that YCARS and other receivers, but primarily YCARS, I won't go into how I know that, but I went through the system and looked and saw that YCARS was the one that was sending the last data sets over to FlightAware. This aircraft did multiple loops around the area and eventually crashed. And we can tell from this what the airspeed was and the altitude. So there's a lot of information that can be used in accident investigations, and we know that the NTSB was looking at, obviously, our data. And what's interesting is that you can actually, let's see here, I'll speed it up. You can actually track the flight live, or not live, but replay the flight here around the Rock Hill area here. and they know that this aircraft was experiencing some altitude changes as well as speed changes. And we know tragically the pilot was killed, and I don't think we've heard a cause as of yet. But all this information is recorded. So when the investigation takes place, they can go look and match that up with radio signals and so forth, and investigate and hopefully help solve causes of crashes. So here's a picture of ADSB returns over Ukraine. Now this was about a week ago, but you'll see Kiev is here, and there's no commercial air traffic in that area, and you can see this live now. You know, there may be other reasons why there's no data being returned, but regardless, they've told the commercial airlines to avoid this area at all, you know, for all reasons. So, so this is just kind of an image. This is a still image here. I want to go to real quick. I'm going to pull up the YCARS site here, and we do not have this mounted on our tower yet, but right now we have numerous aircraft that are reporting. We're tracking currently 17, 18 different aircraft at one time, mind you. Let me pull up the weather here as well. You can see the weather front just moved through, and we've got multiple aircraft that are in the area. So this is live, and if you set up your feeder at home, you would just go to an address, the web address of this device, and you would see this happening live. And you can get information about this aircraft. If you click on it, it will tell you all about who it's registered to and what kind of aircraft it is, and what kind of altitude and speed and other factors. And then if you open up the sidebar, you can get some more details, and you can actually click on that airplane and see pictures of it. You can see details of the flight. You can track it real time. You can see when it's scheduled to, where it's scheduled to go and when and so forth. And there's all kinds of interesting maps that you can change. You can change it to black and white map, or let's see. I guess I can't change it there.
All planes doing that except military?
So yeah, so there are some exceptions to the rules, but the FAA recently said that, like, basically all planes have to have it, including like police helicopters. You'll see the air ambulance take off from Rock Hill here, and you'll see where they're going and how fast they're going and so forth. It's really cool. It's and not only aircraft, but like I mentioned, balloons, experimental things, whatever's flying that may interfere with other aircraft. So it makes kind of a nice screen to have. We've put this up here at the clubhouse before, just kind of watch it. You can watch when the weather comes in. By the way, if you sign up for this and you start feeding them, they give you sort of this access to premium radar, you know, so you can click that, turn that on and off. You can watch planes sort of avoiding thunderstorms. Some happen to have to fly right through it, whatever. I think the most airplanes that I've ever seen tracked, and right now, again, once we get this antenna on the tower, it'll be significantly better reception. Furthest I've gotten, mine's in my attic, maybe 450 miles. That's a VHF signal. Line of sight, so you're going to be, you know, over mountains and things like that. So those aircraft are really high up, reaching my attic. But the interesting thing is that as the weather moves in, you can see planes moving around the weather and things like that. So you get some premium. They give you a premium account, this FlightAware, which is an aviation enthusiast hub. You know, there's discussions and chats and news and everything else. But this is one of the things that we have at the club. So if you want to get started in this, you might say, okay, great, I'm all in. Like, I like airplanes, I want to do this. So you need some kind of feeder. They make this commercial feeder, you can buy from them. We actually have one here. and you need some kind of antenna. Typical ADS-B antenna looks something like this. Okay. This is a little bit longer than the shorter one I showed you, but depending on your space options and so forth, this is about the biggest ADS-B antenna you'd ever have.
Seems like it do the job.
You wouldn't think so. I'm going to show you some funny ones here in a minute. So you also need a dongle, or basically an SDR, right? These became very popular years ago.
Just a normal.
That's a normal SDR. And you're going to use this and plug this either into your computer, or a Raspberry Pi is a great option. They're going to give you all the software to do it. In fact, there's a whole operating system that's called FlightAware that you use instead of Linux or whatever, that is going to plug right into their system. I mean, the setup is so easy. This FlightAware, I've tested both. I've tested many of these. I really like the FlightAware dongle for a couple reasons. To me, it's kind of worth the 39 bucks. You know, I think I got more signals. The most aircraft I've ever tracked at one time is 75, which is really amazing. So do you need an antenna set up like this, like at Walt's house? This is this picture of Walt's house, by the way. No, a simple antenna will work, and I showed you an example of that. This Raspberry Pi, this one sitting right there, there's a Raspberry Pi with a SDR dongle and a little antenna that they give you. This person didn't cut theirs to the length, but regardless, sitting in the window will do the same thing. Will do great. The one on the right, somebody took a connector there, maybe used a couple bolts and bolted on some little ground plane and 4 little legs there, and that's a great antenna. That antenna actually has worked very well for me, something very similar to the one on the right. Another option, there's another one there on the left, and the one on the right, he's just got more legs, a little bit bigger ground plane, if you will. I think he calls it the spider ground plane or something. And it's that simple. It's not difficult. The one on the left, I think is a German design. The one on the right is just a simple dipole. I mean, it doesn't really get a whole lot simpler than that. You don't need to spend a lot of money. In fact, you could probably go through your garage and find parts to make this. This is actually one of my favorite antennas. Like I said, I've tested out a lot of antennas. A Coke can, a beer can. He uses a Pepsi can on one side and a Coke can on the right. This actually works probably better than some of the ADS-B's antennas that I've bought. Not this, but I bought a couple on eBay. You know, they were specials from China, you know, $5-10, whatever. The Coke can works great. I'd say if you're going to build one, try the Coke can first. It's so simple. All these designs, plans are easily found on the internet with just a simple Google search. DIY ADS-B antenna. I mean, it's that simple. And now you think about it. That antenna is picking up signals from several hundred miles away. That little thing in your garage, in your window, in your wherever. You don't have to mount it outside. Works better if you do. But it is a phenomenal little antenna. So what do you need? Well, you need an SDR, either the FlightAware one that they sell. You need an SDR, maybe you have a spare one of these laying around, you don't know what to do with it. Try it. You'll be surprised. You can use, they make a filter for it that goes between the between the antenna and the SDR. I won't go into huge detail, but basically cell towers can interfere because cell towers are down a little bit lower in the spectrum, and they can overpower power and interfere with the ADS-B signals on your side, not commercially, but so there's a filter that you can do that notches everything out, but the 10,090 megahertz or 1,090 megahertz, and really helps your reception. So if you have problems, you can get this filter. You need some kind of computer, whether it's a Raspberry Pi, like mine. Literally, my Raspberry Pi is connected to the flight feeder, plugged into the attic. I never even touch it. It's just sitting up there in the attic. I control it wirelessly. I don't do anything with it. I don't turn it off. I don't, just leave it on. But you can plug it into the computer. Your computer can do it. Your desktop, at home, whatever. And an antenna. And so you need an SDR, some kind, a computer, antenna. I didn't put software here. I'm going to assume that you know how to download software. And I would recommend FlightAware. It's extremely easy to get started. I mean, they give you all the software. They give you instructions. They're very helpful about if you have trouble installing it or something. It's really easy. I would say most of us could probably get it up and running in less than an hour, to be honest.
Did you say the FlightAware is free also?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the FlightAware, they're going to give you all the software that you need, the account, and you get this premium account. If you like airplanes, you can read all about airplane news and aviation news. The only thing you're going to have to acquire is obviously the SDR itself, right? The computer, you probably have one at home, and some kind of antenna. What's really amazing is at any one time, all these aircraft are flying around the country. And nobody really knows that they're broadcasting all this stuff out. You're just scooping it up. So what you'll see on ADS-B, civilian and sometimes military aircraft, and when the military aircraft, they have a little different shape to them. They look like a fighter jet. It's really cool when you see them. You'll see commercial and private aircraft. You'll see planes, helicopters, even vehicles. If you live near the airport, vehicles have the ADS-B on them and are broadcasting. And so when conditions are really good for VHF, here in Rock Hill, I can see where vehicles are on the tarmac at Charlotte driving around. Which is really pretty cool, which is about 20 miles, 30 miles. You'll see balloons. These are 3 Google balloons that were flying over Rock Hill. I don't know if there's city of Rock Hill here. Okay. This is Van Wyck. You guys know where this is. They were flying over, they were 65,000 feet. And I saw these things tracking across this. I was like, what is that? And it was, I can't remember the name of the Google project, but this is where they were experimenting they were looking at sending or providing Wi-Fi to people in rural countries. They were going to use balloons possibly. And they were testing this over Rock Hill. It's really cool. I'd never seen anything like it, and I hadn't seen anything since.
Which is 65,000 feet, you probably wouldn't see it.
You wouldn't see it, but your computer's hearing it, yeah, which is really cool. They do provide, in some shape, form, or fashion, the raw data for students and things like that. Want to do research and I don't know what else, And like I said, the NexRad radar, so you get free, nice radar, almost real time. That's the other thing is that if you go to a flight site and track an aircraft, it's delayed by a minute or two. With the flight feeder stuff, you are seeing it live. So if plane is flying over your house, literally, you can look at the screen and see exactly what plane that is, how high it is, where it's going, all that. It's really cool. So the website, just go to FlightAware.com. Easiest to set up, you purchase their stuff. Just second easiest, you build a PiAware. If you have a Raspberry Pi at home, that's a great way to do it. If you feed FlightAware, I mentioned you get a free premium account. And live from anywhere, you can, with an internet connection, you can look at the stuff, watch the stuff happening. And then there's actually a scoreboard for the number of airplanes and the number of signals that you're tracking with regards to other people in the world. And you can see kind of where you rank. And also other club members who I know have this already. They'll never catch me. But it's fun to look and see, you know, that out of 30 or 40,000 people that use this, where you rank. It's just kind of fun to watch, you know. There's no prizes or anything, but so what does it mean for us as ham radio operators? Well, you know, you say, well, I don't really care about airplanes, but or maybe you do, but it's a great way to learn about VHF propagation principles. And, you know, when would you be getting those long range signals versus not? Line of sight. Why aren't you seeing aircraft, you know, over Canada? Well, but every now and then you might get a signal, and actually you can see there's a dashboard that you can see your score and what the furthest airplane was that was tracked and how was it used, was that data used to feed any larger sites and so forth. So it's a great way to kind of learn about VHF and maybe even within your home, you know, testing out different locations where do you get more airplanes, in the attic or down on the ground or in the window or in the kitchen, whatever. Building and experimenting with simple small antennas to improve reception. I can't tell you the number of antennas that I've built and just had fun building them just to try it. I'm like, I think that'll work. Let me try that. Like the Coke can. What's that? Just standard coax will work, yes. In fact, I think some people actually use 75 ohm coax, but yeah, you can try it. You can try it. All you got to do is get it into that SDR, you know. And as I mentioned before, it does provide a service to the community. I think that it kind of highlighted that with the plane crash, and I'd like to think that the information that we provided, because we had that thing so close to where it was, they got some answers from it. I don't know. Most of all, have fun. You know, it's just another thing that is interesting, exciting, and it's the use of data to provide real-time information and potentially improve people's lives. So I will leave you with not that image, the real-time image here. This is this is the these are all the aircraft that are currently being tracked right now at the YCARS clubhouse. There's 35 aircraft right now, and this is our location here. Or maybe it's my location. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the clubhouse location there. So, you know, the furthest aircraft right now that we're tracking, and this thing's not even on the tower yet, is roughly from us 112 miles. It's pretty amazing. So I'll leave it. If there's any questions, you guys got any questions, or if you have questions, feel free to email me at k4dqp@ycars.com, and that will wrap it up for tonight.
And,
Unless there's a question. Oh,
we'll put that on YouTube, right?
yes, it's going to go on YouTube there.
I can't remember all this stuff.
I'll email you the presentations. Yeah, yeah, I'll email them to you. Thank you so much.
Good.
Thank you, David.